Bye, everyone. In many congregations, it is customary on the evening of Rosh Hashanah for the rabbi to deliver a State of the Union of the Jewish people. On May 11, 2021, the 2020 Pew Research of American Jewry was released. The document contains 248 pages, and I would like to read them for you tonight. Well, I'm glad you understood it was a joke. But I do want to take a moment and think about the state of Judaism. There's a famous story that tells that when Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidic Judaism, saw that the Jewish people were threatened by tragedy, he would go to a particular place in the forest where he lit a fire and recited a particular prayer and asked for a miracle to save the Jews from the threat. Because of the holy fire and the faithfulness of the prayer, the miracle was accomplished. Later, when the Baal Shem Tov's disciple, the Maggid of Masrich, had to intervene with heaven for the same reason, he went to the same place in the forest where he told the master of the universe that while he did not know how to light the fire, he could still recite the prayer. And again, the miracle was accomplished. Later still, Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sasov, in turn, a disciple of the Maggid of Masrich, went into the forest to save his people. I do not know how to light the fire, he pleaded with God. And I do not know the prayer, but I can find the place, and this must be sufficient. Once again, the miracle was accomplished. When it was the turn of Rabbi Israel of Rizin, he sat in his armchair, holding his head on his hands, and said to God, I am unable to light the fire. I do not know the prayer, and I cannot even find the place in the forest. All I can do is to tell the story. That must be enough. Now, while I find the symbolism of the forest and the fire to be very moving, this story is actually problematic. It is problematic because it assumes that every new generation is lesser than the previous one. It presents the story of a new generation that deals with the same challenges of the previous one, but every time does it with fewer tools and knowledge. It idealizes an irreplicable past and diminishes the present and the future. The Jewish philosopher Simon Rabidowitz explains, the world makes many images of Israel, but Israel makes only one image of itself, that of being constantly on the verge of ceasing to be, of disappearing. There was hardly a generation in the diaspora that did not consider itself the final link of Israel's chain. Each always saw before it the abyss, ready to swallow it up. There was scarcely a generation that while toiling, falling, and rising again, being uprooted and striking new roots, was not filled with the deepest anxiety. Not only, says Rabbi David, for itself, but also for the great past that was going to disappear forever. as well for the future of unborn generations. Yet, elsewhere, Rabbi Nicos explains that, in part, the secret of continuity, of our continuity, might be that we have been in a constant war for our survival. And in his words, the world may be constantly dying, but no people was ever so incessantly dying as the people of Israel. En Hadash tachat hashemesh. There is nothing new under the sun. We still have existential fear and anxiety today. Today, we mortify ourselves with unaffiliation, lack of engagement, Jewish illiteracy, and much more. We keep idealizing an irreplicable past and often refer to younger generations derogatorily as if their existence symbolized the beginning of the end of Judaism in the United States. But is that right? Are we seeing the last link in the chain? Shall we start eulogizing Judaism? Rabbi Professor Larry Hoffman, over the pandemic, started publishing a series of posts called Open Letter to My Students. Number 35 was called Chicken Little and Our Rabbi Problem. He has some sense of humor. As usual, for Larry's writing, this letter is extremely eloquent and thought-provoking. I encourage you to Google it, find it, and read it entirely. Rabbi Hoffman refers to what he calls the doom and gloom presented in social media and discussion nowadays about the state of our people and our synagogues. While there is a lot that we need to do, in fact, we are far from this gloomy picture. He quotes from the 2020 Study of American Congregations by Faith Communities Today, FACT. Unlike the Pew Research, which is based on religious views of individuals, this study is based on actual congregations. 40% of synagogues do report declining numbers, but an equal 40% are growing. This information is particularly interesting when crossed with that of the Pew Research, which shows a growth of the Jewish population in the United States from 6.7 million in 2013 to 7.5 million in 2020. 83% of synagogues are willing to change in order to meet new challenges. This is a huge increase from only 4% in 2010. That doesn't mean we know how to change. Let's be honest here. We'll figure that out. But we did witness and experience the high level of adaptability that our congregations have in the light of the pandemic. Synagogues are actively involved in the wider community life, provide daycare programs, host other nonprofits, and open their buildings to support groups like AA. Lastly, with regard to younger members, while in 2010 only 8% of members were in the age range of 18 to 34 years old, by 2020, the number was 20%. Our congregations are still a source of spiritual support, community, rituals, outreach, and much more. Yet, the number of candidates enlisting to rabbinical seminars is declining. Why is that? Hoffman brings the story of Chicken Little. In the story, the fox convinces Chicken Little that the sky is falling in order to spread panic in the farm. Don't believe everything you hear. If we all go about forecasting the end of synagogues, we should not be surprised at failing numbers of rabbinic candidates. It is time, says Larry, this is a quote, it is time to give up the Chicken Little gullibility and become properly bullish on the synagogue future. End quote. It is time to choose a different narrative, and with that, to shift our approach to Jewish tradition. First, we should internalize that today all Jews are Jews by choice. Second, it is by choosing and owning our tradition that we become a thriving civilization, as opposed to a museum, a memorial of something that has been lost and cannot be recreated. Instead of current Judaism as the external layer that defines us, it is time to harness the power of its wisdom and let it shape us from inside. Mordechai Kaplan once said that the Jewish religion existed for the Jewish people and not the Jewish people for the Jewish religion. The Jewish religion existed for the Jewish people and not the Jewish people for the Jewish religion. The obsessive worry with Jewish preservation is probably one of its most dangerous threats. That's the formula for a dead museum-like Judaism, not a lively and dynamic one. In contrast, I believe that the lively and dynamic approach is one of the possible formulas to live a life with meaning and connection. The third most watched TED Talk of all time, with almost 60 million views, is called How Great Leaders Inspire Action. There, Simon Sinek, author and inspirational speaker, presents something called the golden circle. He explains that most people and companies know what they do. Some of them know how they do it, but only a few know why they do what they do. He says that the most successful enterprises always know why they do what they do. And so, what about us? Do we know? Have we asked ourselves why? In an age of endless possibilities and choices, why choose Judaism? I want to offer the answer that Shir Hadash has to the why question. 4 core values, pillars of our communal life. And I would also like to share a brief personal reading of these 4 core values and invite you to think about how you could use and interpret them, as I hope many of us during this time are shopping for inspirational ideas for the year to come. Number 1, spirituality. Spirituality is the search for a state of awakeness and practice that helps us connect with ourselves, with each other, and with God. It is the intentional work toward finding attention and dedication in a social environment that praises dispersion. It is also the work of holding room for hope and joy while experiencing a world that is in need of healing. Number 2, wisdom. We ask to move from a world that increasingly communicates through slogans and try to find nuance and ground in our ancient and modern wisdom. Jewish tradition encourages us to study in dialogue. We have a tradition of Hebruta, of growth in conversation. Symbolically, we don't seek to become wise teachers, but rather Talmidei Chachamim, wise students. In this amazing and constantly evolving world, we are encouraged to be lifelong learners. We are seekers, we are passionate students, and expert arguers. In the study of Torah, it's important to be an arguer. We find strength, growth, and renewal. Number 3, community. Community is all of us. All of us. It is our decision to share in our lives, to show up for each other, and to create an I see you culture. It is the space that is willing to accompany us in every single stage of our lives. Being community in an individualistic society is an act of both spiritual and moral defiance. Being community is the case for our ability to build a home together with enough room to hold our commonalities and, yes, our diversity. Being community is not the search for uniformity, but rather the beautiful work of creating unity. Number 4 and last, social responsibility. The word responsibility is deeply tied to the word response. Responsibility, response. There is nothing to respond to if we are not hearing any questions. Social responsibility is our decision to challenge moral and social obliviousness and to harness the power of our community to do good. Spirituality, wisdom, community, social responsibility. Think about the power of the statement, my faith tradition encourages me to celebrate time, to dedicate time to my family, to develop a deep connection with my own soul so I can live a life close to my emotional and spiritual aspirations. It also connects me with a heritage and a collective memory and wisdom that help me be a more thoughtful person and a sensitive member of my society. No, our generation doesn't know the Baal Shem Tov's place in the forest, nor the special fire and prayer. And yes, we do know the story. And we are extremely fortunate and blessed by the stories that we hold in the collective memory of our people. But the goal of our generation is not to recreate a lost fire. It is rather to light our own, finding inspiration and wisdom in our past, and wrestling to create meaning in our present. A community committed to spirituality, to nurturing souls, and celebrating sacred moments. A community committed to wisdom, to learning and growth. A community of all of us, committed to see each other and work under its tent to find unity in the diversity. And finally, a community that is willing to awaken and respond to the big questions of our society and time. This community is not disappearing. This community is elevating life with Jewish tradition. I want to pray for all of us for this year to be a year of why, a purpose-driven year, a year of stories to which we add our own, a year of spirituality and connection, a year of wisdom and growth, a year of community, of sharing and support, and a year of social responsibility, a year in which we defy our own obliviousness and respond. Shana Tova u'metuka.